All right. So, guys, welcome to the Saturday morning talk. It's Friday evening in the States, and I appreciate all of you guys showing up. Today, based upon the fact that Michael has just gotten out of the retreat at Deepabawan, led by my good friend Achan Dhammavitu, who's, by the way, been just past his 30th anniversary. He's been a monk now for more than 30 years. He
Well,
ordained in 1993, the year that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa died. Um, and so, um, what we can talk about, or at least get started talking about today, is the point of why do we do retreats? What is the point of going to retreat and practicing a particular system that the teacher is teaching? And how does that apply in the daily life that we live, especially the Westerners who are not ordained, not living in a Wat, and having to deal with the world in general? And that part of the point that I would say is that a lot of the Western Buddhism seems to think that having a particular experience after a lot of practice of meditation, some sort of peak experience, is the goal. And that if you have a particular kind of an experience, that means that you've attained something and that it puts you in a position of having attained that. And there's a lot of different levels of, or labels, actually, that people have heard about in Buddhism and then think that that's an attainment and that that attainment is marked by a particular experience that we can call a peak experience or a special kind of an experience in their practice. So, Michael, I have that question for you. Did you have any peak experience or any special experiences in your practice?
um, I definitely encountered some experiences that I have not had before, for
Okay,
sure.
all right. And how do you think that those experiences that you had in the meditation hall are going to relate then to your normal living?
I mean, for me, a lot of it just comes down to enjoying the show and practicing chilling out, uh, having
All
a good
right.
time.
All right. Well, you're pointing out more than the way that I would like to discuss it today. Is that peak experiences really don't mean much of anything. That basically what we can really understand about them, especially some of the meditation teachers who have attained something and then advertise that they've attained something because they had experiences, and those peak experiences were decades ago, not just months, but years and years ago. And that, because they've had that experience, that means that they've attained something. And the Buddha really wasn't talking about it like that. That basically these labels of Sotapan, Sotagami, Anagami, and Arahat basically have more to do with how a person is responding to this particular moment, right here, right now, moment by moment, day by day, as we live our lives. How do we respond to our environment rather than having some sort of meditation retreat or some experience that we had long ago that's supposed to be transformative? And so, what we're pointing out is that the transformation doesn't happen because of the peak experience. The transformation happens again right here, right now. Once again, remember, oh, I'm going to change. I'm going to transform. So, these peak experiences don't have quite the value that people consider. That in fact, one of the stories would be about the guy who says, "Oh, I put in 10,000 hours, or I put in 50,000 hours, or I put in 100,000 hours of meditation," expecting that the time that they put in and the buildup of that time is sort of like reaching a particular level so that something magical happens, the peak experience happens. Sort of like the idea that you can sit there in meditation doing deep practice or whatever like that, and then finally, after 100,000 hours, the karma machine waltzes in, does Shaktipat, and now you feel good. And that's a peak experience. Okay. Well, what we're really talking about is that what happens after that experience is over and the common machine takes his bowl and his rose water and the Shakti pot brush out. Now what? And the answer to that is, well, now we're getting into the real teachings of the Buddha, which has to do with how you're going to handle this present moment. Because we have that present moment one after another, after another, after another. And so what we're actually, the value of the practice is that we're changing habits, that we have gotten stuck in a rut of thinking in a certain kind of way, and that we're practicing to come out of that. And much of that has to do then with sati, to remember that we can make a change right again, right here, right now. That it's not that once we make the change or that some big event happens, now the change happens automatically, moment by moment. Oh no, we have to remember to make the change again. Not only to remember to make the change again, but remember to take the right effort to change again. Now, in the beginning, it's certainly true that getting stuck in a rut, it takes quite a lot to get out of the rut the first time. But then we'll get stuck in a rut again. And we'll got some experience on how to get out of ruts. So getting out of the ruts over and over again, we begin to gain expertise in coming out of the ruts. So in fact, the effort in the beginning is really effortful, but eventually it becomes easier and easier to take the right effort. And I'll define right effort as just the least amount of effort actually necessary in order to actually get the job done. Now, what we're talking about here, the getting of the job done, what is the job to do is to get the mind to change from unwholesome thoughts into wholesome thoughts. That's the change that's necessary. And some students will have something, let us say, on their mind. And then they sit down for meditation. There's a lot of different examples of what we can have on our mind, like, oh, we got to get the car fixed, or, oh, we've got to go to do something, or, well, we've got to travel, or we've got to fix something, or we've got to have a fix to our relationship. Something around that issue or area is something that needs to be done. And so we'll get that on their mind. And then we sit down to practice, and we have to remember time after time again, oh, that's not a good, wholesome thing to think about right now. Let's think about what's happening right now. Let's come back to the breath, come back to the breathing, come back to the present moment, become part of what's real, and actually change the mind, to gladden the mind, to brighten the mind states, and to have wholesome thoughts. We can do that over and over and over again, and then something event out in the world will happen, some trouble will happen, something tough will happen, And then we go right back into our old ways of thinking. We handle that the same way that we've always handled that. An example of that would be criticism, that somebody calls you a doofus. The question is, why are we worried about what people call us? The answer to that is because we're in the habit of worrying about what people call us. In fact, have you ever heard of the expression thick-skinned versus thin-skinned? So, thick-skinned means that somebody can call you a name or criticize you in some way, and the thick skin then protects some sort of inner core. And that if you're thin-skinned, that means that the skin is not thick enough to protect that inner core. And the question now then is, well, if we have this idea or concept of thick-skinned versus thin-skinned, what is the skin trying to protect? What is this core? And the answer to that in the system of the way that the Buddha would talk is that core is me, my inner being, my deepest point, that which is most important. That's, in fact, you could call it even the instinct of survival, the survival mechanism. That internal core that we have needs to be protected. So, how in the world can going to a meditation retreat, sitting in concentration, watching your nose tip, or having some peak experience, how is that going to protect that inner core? Well, there's two ways of looking at it. One is the way of, oh, well, meditation then is going to help me get a thick skin so that I can handle those insults, those slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. I can protect this soft inner core. And that's the way that we normally think about it, but that's not really the teaching of the Buddha. The real teaching of the Buddha has to do with, let's work with that core. Let's recognize, in fact, the reality is there is no core there. Or in the inner part of the core, that which we protect is actually ourself, the selfishness, or the inner part. So if we can then look at it in two ways, and that is, one is that we need to toughen up what's in that inner core. But the other way of thinking of it is that whatever is in that inner core is not important anyway, that in fact is actually kind of empty, that we don't really need protection, that in fact the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, the comments that people make, the name calling and all of that is not really dangerous. If somebody pulls a gun on you in an angry method, requires you to do something, or maybe they're leading you in balls and chain to the firing squad, these are real dangerous situations. But very rarely are we actually in a real dangerous situation. And so we feel like it's dangerous when somebody insults us. We feel like that we're being attacked, when in fact verbal attacks are not really dangerous at all. So part of it has to do with that inner core protection, is to realize that the inner core is not really under attack. So when some politician calls another politician a dirty name, you know, this one thing that I have been seeing is that a lot of people are getting attacked and they can smile right through it. What that actually means is that they've developed a thick skin, but they still have that inner core that's vulnerable. In fact, you could say that that vulnerability is actually an attitude of being a victim. So when somebody attacks, We want to have that thick skin so that we don't be put in the position of being under attack, which means being victimized by somebody's attacking us. And the reality is that they really can't attack, or that what they're doing is certainly not an attack, it's just words, and that oftentimes what they're attacking is they're something that they've made up in their mind. And a good example of that is in American politics when Donald Trump will call somebody a name like Little. Ted Cruz, he called Little Ted Cruz. And now he's got a new nickname for Nikki Haley. I've forgotten what it was. But the point is that this often happens when somebody is attacking you. They are not attacking you. They're attacking their ideas of who you are. And the question is, are you going to stand up and say, yes, that's who I am, and I don't like that you're attacking me? Where in fact, they're really not attacking you. They're attacking their idea of you. They're not attacking you at all. They're attacking their idea of you. Now, are you then going to oblige them by agreeing that, yes, who they are attacking is in fact me? They are accurate. Or are you going to put in the position of, well, they're just attacking. They're attacking something in their own mind. They're not attacking me, my inner core. But we can also see in a way that that's like a thick skin. The real point is that they can't actually attack you because there's nothing there to attack. That inner core is actually empty. There's nothing there. But we are under the delusion that there is an inner core, that there is an inner sanctum. There's a real me down there someplace that's vulnerable, on guard, under attack, and that it's dangerous. But this is all delusional. These are the kind of thoughts that we have. And so coming then back to the practice of anapanasati, the practice of meditation, is that we actually need to practice that there is really no danger. There is really nothing to it. There is really just this present moment, but there is no one there. You probably heard from the Visuddhimagga that there is walking, but there no be a walker. There is no one walking, there is just walking. Well, we can apply that to everything. So, being under attack, there is the attacking, but there is no one doing the attacking, and better still, there is no one to be attacked. That's the delusion of the self. Who am I? The answer to that is it's inconsistent. The main teaching of the Buddha, by the way, is about anicca, dukkha, anatta, in the sense that everything is changing. Yourself is changing. It's not a stable object. That in fact, sometimes it doesn't exist and sometimes it does exist, but when it does exist, it's only an idea, only a thought, only a, oh, me, he's attacking me, rather than recognizing that there's just attacking going on. It's coming out of some brain or another, but that he wants to use my name, and therefore I say, yes, sir, that's who I am, and therefore you're attacking me. But really, the point is that under these attacks or under these slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, these things are not dangerous because there's really no you, no inner core to attack. So let's look at it like this. DJ, who is it that's your inner core? Who is it down there? Who is it that needs to be protected by a thick skin?
I don't know.
I don't know is exactly right. What is it? How about you, Dhammadas? Who is it down there in that inner core? Who is it that needs to have a thick skin to protect it?
I don't know. I think it's just an illusion.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Michael? Who is it that's in that inner core, down deep inside, that needs to be protected by a thick skin from the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune?
Nobody's home.
Nobody is home, exactly. There is no core. There is no inner being other than we think so. But while we're talking right now, we can have this discussion, and all of you will agree that, in fact, there's really nothing to it. There's not an inner core. But how do we respond and how do we feel when someone's actively attacking us? Like, DJ, that beard is scruffy. You makes you look fat and ugly. Okay? Right. So what happens inside? What kind of feelings do you have when I say that?
Well, just then it was rather empty, but
Well, part of the issue is that you know that I'm just kidding, just joking, just using as an example.
yes.
But when somebody says it with real strength and real energy and really wants to hurt you, there is that feeling of being hurt inside, that the skin was not thick enough. And the answer to that then is that will possibly bring up anxiety. It brings up a feeling of fear, trepidation. We have thoughts like, oh no, that means that no one loves me. Or, oh no, no one will talk to me ever again. Or, oh no, the future is bleak now because we're under attack. This is where the actual practice then becomes valuable. Can you see that those thoughts, those tensions, that anxiety that comes up inside, we can say, wait a minute, I see that. Aha, I can see it. And therefore, I can now have wholesome thoughts. I don't have the thoughts, oh no, now no one will love me, or oh no, now nobody pays attention, or oh no, this oh no kind of stuff. Is, wait a minute, aha, I see that thought. I can see it. And I can take a deep breath and change my thoughts into, he missed me. He can't touch me. There is nothing that in my inner core, there is nothing there that's vulnerable. That I'm already lovable.
Yeah, it's just remembering that, right? That's why sati is so important.
Right. This is why sati is so important, is because the slings and arrows, they don't actually have to be an attack. I mean, your PC attacks you when it doesn't do what you want it to do. Okay? You key on the keyboard, now the keyboard doesn't work. Oh no. Disaster. No, you're okay. Can you remember that you're okay? Can you remember that it's not you that's broken, it's just a keyboard? And keyboards are what? $1? $2? Nothing much to it. But we have this idea, oh no, things have gone bad. And that oh no is actually a feeling. And we can remember then. This is the value then of practicing in these retreats, is to remember thought by thought by thought, because in the retreat, it's not a broken keyboard that attacks you, it's these negative thoughts. Oh no, I've got work to do. Oh no, what am I going to do after I get out of the retreat? Oh no, I had trouble getting into the retreat. Oh no, I had an argument with the taxi driver. Oh no, all of this kind of stuff happens, and the recognition is right now there's no taxi driver. Wow, what a relief it is. Wow, I don't have to deal with that. And so this is really the value of our practice in retreats and in our private practice, is to practice putting the mind into a really good state so that when the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune hit us out in the world, we can then remember to practice that. Now, we can actually get good at it. As I said before, in the beginning, for the beginners, right effort is actually an effort because we're stuck in a rut. But after we practice for a while, the sati comes quickly. After a while, the effort becomes easier and easier. After a while, it's easy to convert to everything's all right, everything's fine, not a worry in the world. We can begin to brighten the mind. But if the meditation teachers in these various retreats don't tell us that we've got an option, we've got a choice moment by moment for the rest of our lives, right here, right now, what are the choices are you making? Whether you're sitting in the retreat where there's really no pressure, or whether you're out traveling, which is a lot of pressure, or you're at a job, that's a lot of pressure, or that you're trying to, let us say, make a name for yourself as a Dhamma teacher, that's a lot of pressure when other Dhamma teachers attack. And in fact, we've been watching some of that scenario go on our Skype groups, to where some teachers get into attack mode, attacking other teachers. And that those attacks are real only in the sense that people feel like that they're under attack. One of them just recently said that he needed to have a thick skin and his skin was not thick enough. And the answer to that is that there's nothing that really needs to be protected. That, yeah, this teacher is attacking, so what? Nothing there to be defended. That we're not vulnerable, because in fact that's just an attitude that we picked up as a child, that we're vulnerable, that we're a victim to these attacks. So can you practice coming out of your vulnerable state? Can you practice changing your attitude from being vulnerable to being strong? This is the kind of practice that we really want to occur when we're sitting there in the retreat or sitting in meditation, is to start to practice, I can handle this. Oh, there's nothing to it. Anything and everything can't touch me. Why? Because I've got no core that needs to be protected. They can't touch it. I don't need a thick skin or a thin skin or anything like that, because there is nothing there that really needs protection, especially from words and events. That the real issue is that things are not dangerous. And yet we've lived our whole lives as if everything was important. Everything is dangerous. Math pop quizzes are dangerous. Not doing our homework is dangerous. Not showing up to work on time is dangerous. We have all of these dangers there because we think that there's an inner core that's vulnerable. And the fact is that, so what if you're late to work? No problem. So what if you get fired? Then in fact, I have heard the statistics is that the biggest problem that a person will have is when they get fired from a job. They mope around and they have trouble getting a new job. It's because of their attitude. that in fact, you probably heard that if you've got a job, it's easier to get a new job than it is when you're not working. Have you ever heard of that, DJ?
Yeah.
Would you believe me when I said that it really has to do with our attitude? That if we've got a job, then we don't need a job. Therefore, getting a new job is easy. But if we need a job, now it's hard to get. I don't know what the actual statistics are, or even in fact that they've got any statistics about whether you've been unemployed, can you get a job or not, in the sense of the employer. But we do know that it has to do with our own attitude. And so if we need a job, getting a new job is hard. But if we don't need a new job, then getting a job is easy. It's because of our attitude. It's because of that inner core. It's because when we don't have a job because we've gotten fired, that we're somehow now wounded. There are several big wounds that can happen in one's life. Getting fired from a job, losing one's house, or having a divorce. Those seem to be the really big three. Having a mom die, that's temporary grief, but we'll get over that. Having a child die, that's grief, real grief, but we'll get over that. But losing a job, that's like real attack. That's me that's being attacked. I got fired. Oh no. All right. So that means that the core inside is vulnerable. Practicing Anapanasati is actually practicing to throw out all of that vulnerability that's in that core, throwing out all of that victimhood, and if necessary, replacing it with the attitude of, can't touch me. There's no inner core there. You can't hurt me. You can't get to me. There's nothing about it. So, Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is wonderful. I am sort of curious, when is it a good time to nurture, and when is it a good time to just say, oh, that's not even me, so it doesn't matter? Because for me, I felt both were helpful.
Mm-hmm. All right. One of them, okay, so we're actually looking at it from two different places. One is that we've gotten wounded, and that is that we need to nurture ourselves. You're going to be okay. This is really not a big deal. And then the other side of it is that really it's not my business. What that guy has to say is really, it's not my business. It's not my concern. That in fact, nothing is my business. I have no concerns because I don't have a vulnerable inner core. Those two actions operate together. The nurturing, and they also, not my business. In fact, the nurturing part will bring us up to a certain level, and then the maintaining of that level is by pointing out that that's not my business, not my concern, not my issue. I really like that statement of not my business.
Yes.
We can use that with politicians. Donald Trump, not my business. Joe Biden, not my business. Putin, not my business. Lewinsky, not my business. Hillary Clinton is a pedophile, not my business. Okay, that's a way of looking at it is that don't get dragged into things if you're not already a part of it. It's not my business. Or if we do get wounded, how do we come out of it? Is by nurturing ourselves. There was never anything to it. He can't touch me anyway. Okay? So those are the two things that we could be useful if we can remember to apply that. Rather than, oh, poor me, I got wounded. Oh, he said a bad thing about me. So the idea then of meditation having a peak experience is not really going to help us with that. And that in Western Buddhism, they actually have the idea that a peak experience kind of means that they've attained something, to where that's not really the case at all. That in fact, in the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 48, the Kazambian Sutta, the Buddha talks about 7 knowledges. And that the first knowledge is that no matter how obstructed the mind gets, I can get out of it and come back to reality and see things as they really are. That's basically that first step of being able to nurture ourselves, because the mind has become obstructed by the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. The mind has become obstructed by, he hurt me, he accused me, he called me names, he said I was ugly, those kind of things. And we can get that stuff stuck in the mind, but the first real knowledge is the knowledge of, I can get out of that. He can't touch me. He can't do that to me. I can come back to the reality. The reality is that he didn't hurt anybody at all. That I thought that he did, but that's an obstruction of my own mind. I thought that he hurt me, or in fact, nope, he couldn't do that. All right. So going through these 7 knowledges, there is the 5th knowledge that's really valuable at this point in time. The 5th knowledge has 2 examples to it. One of them is that though a monk is going about his duties in the watch, sweeping and whatnot, he still has his mind on the Dhamma. This is an important point then, is that we begin to, let us say, remember the Dhamma, to have sati for the Dhamma. And by the way, the Buddha Dhamma has one quality to it, and that is that it is wholesome. It is not ever unwholesome. It's always wholesome. When we're thinking about the Dhamma, we're thinking about freedom, release, escape from the clutches of the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. In fact, in the Western mentality, they put down and have a negative connotation on the word escape, in the sense of escapism. Oh, you're supposed to do that, and you're shirking your responsibility and escaping it, right? Well, this is just another one of those slings or arrows. When people are saying, oh, you're supposed to step up and do that job, and the answer to that is, no, I escape. I got away. Ha ha, can't catch me. That I'll choose what I want to do. And so that idea of coming back to the monk sweeping, but having his mind on the Dhamma, means then that we're looking at it from the position of, when we're sitting in meditation, getting a peak experience and having that big peak experience, is that going to help us to remember to keep our minds focused on the Dhamma? Or is our practice in meditation really going to be there to help us to remember to keep focused on reality, to focus on the Dhamma? So another example out of that one is that a cow has a young calf, and though she's out there in the pasture eating grass, she's got one eye on that calf. She is not going to let that calf go off into danger. So she's got the same mentality about protecting the calf, the same way that the monk who is sweeping is still having his eye on the Dhamma. So if we can go around living our lives and getting insulted, losing a job, getting caught with responsibilities that we don't want to do and called an escapism or whatever like that, we can remember. That's what sati is all about, is to remember that really everything is okay, to remember that, oh, that inner core is really empty. There's nobody at home. There is no me that needs to be protected. And so, backing up just a little bit, the fourth knowledge is about our own wrongdoing. Let us say that somebody accuses you of something and they're spot on. They're correct. They've got you. They know who you are. You screwed up, and they're keeping tabs on you about it. Well, this is where we come in again with that nurturing quality of being able to forgive ourselves of our own wrongdoing. That in fact, if we go into a denial, oh no, that's not me, or oh no, you missed the point, or oh no, you got that wrong, and all of that, that's actually trying to defend ourselves, which means we're trying to defend that vulnerable inner core. And right now it's really vulnerable because it's screwed up. The answer with that again is that no, there's not any inner core. That yes, wrongdoing is happening. Let's be open and honest with it and say, yes, sir, I did that. I can handle that. Yeah, I screwed up. I've screwed up before. Humans screw up. It's nature. It's part of being alive. And often being dead is because we screwed up. Everybody screws up. Can we forgive ourselves for that? Can we nurture ourselves? Can we admit that we've screwed up? We can if we're well practiced. And how do we practice that in Anapanasati? Well, Goenka talks about it in the sense that when you're watching your breath and then the mind wanders away and then you catch it, the mind wander away. What does Goenka say to do? Never mind. Forgive yourself for having wandered away and come back and start again. We don't have to sit there and say, oh, poor me, my mind wandered away from my breath. Oh, this meditation is so hard. Oh, poor me, right? That's being in that vulnerable inner core again. But if we can recognize that we screw up, we make mistakes, we have wrongdoing, yeah, so what? I'm going to watch it. I'm going to be curious about it. I'm going to be there for it. I'm going to see it. And I'm going to congratulate myself when I can see it right before it happens again. Aha, I caught you. Aha, I see you. If we can well practice in that, then out in the world, when somebody actually accuses us of wrongdoing, you say, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I screwed that up. Yeah, I messed up. No big deal. So that's the fourth knowledge. That's actually the fulcrum point. That's the teeter-totter when the teeter-totter shifts. Let us say also that if you're climbing a mountain, say on a bicycle, and then you get to the high point of the mountain, guess what? From now on, it's downhill. So the uphill struggle, the uphill part of the right effort is because we're trying to fix something that's broken. Once we recognize that it's okay that it's broken, then everything after that is sort of downhill. It's all right, I screwed up. I'm an ordinary person. But you see, much of the practice of Anapanasati, or let us say Western Buddhism, has to do, I'm going to climb up to a peak so that I don't ever screw up ever again. And now I'm on top of the world. Oh no, the question is, can you be an ordinary person? Can you have your foibles and screw ups and nurture yourself out of it? And that's the high point, is your self-acceptance that I'm a screw up, that I'm old and fat and ugly, but I'm happy. That's the whole point of it is that we're not trying to gain some peak experience so that everything is joyful after that. The question is, can you be joyful even when things are screwed up? So let's go on to the other ones, because we mentioned that there were 7, and we're just skipping around. The number 6 on the list has to do with number 5 again, and that is being enthusiastic about the Dhamma, in the sense also of being enthusiastic and curious about what are we screwing up? How are our foibles? How do I respond to the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune? In other words, here is where we're really getting into that inner core and getting in tune with it. When we become enthusiastic for the Dhamma, everything we see is the Dhamma. Dhamma here, Dhamma there, Dhamma in the core, Dhamma in the bathroom, Dhamma everywhere. And we live the Dhamma because we're curious about it. We're always interested in it, and we see it everywhere. And then we begin to clean things out, really. It gets emptier and emptier. And as that occurs, the delight grows. Wow, I can do this. Wow, I am getting empty. This is the 7th knowledge, that everything is delightful. Everything is marvelous. We live in a paradise. Who could ask for anything more? This is the real point of the Dhamma, is to come to the point that we're really not just enthusiastic and eager for the Dhamma, but we love it. Everything is all right. Everything is fine. That satisfaction has finally really arrived. And that's the 7th knowledge. Now, the Buddha talks about these 7 knowledges in response to, or in relationship, let us say, to being a sotapanna. Now, the word sotapanna actually has the quality of entering the stream. They call it the stream enterer. Well, what is that stream that we're entering into? It's the Dhamma. But we're not entering into the Dhamma and floating around like a leaf in a whirlpool. No, we now can swim. That this is our swimming hole. The whole world becomes a delightful place that we can float on our back and spit water out and just have a ball, because we're in charge of the world now. We're delighted with the world. And these 7 knowledges then bring us to the point that the inner core is kind of empty. There's nothing really to it. Isn't that great? Isn't that marvelous? They can't touch you because they can't get to you because you're not at home. You're not in that inner core at all. There's nothing there to it. What do you think about that, DJ? That 7th knowledge, that delight.
Yeah, just delighted. Yeah. And that, before that too, there's like the enthusiasm for Dhamma, right? Seeing it everywhere. It's all an opportunity to continue that joyful investigation into like reality and what's actually happening. So it's not like, there's never a dull moment when we remember, because we spot that dullness and we throw it out. But
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is the real teaching of the Buddha, and it does not have anything to do with peak experience. It always has to do with right now. Are you enthusiastic for the reality of the Dhamma? Can you remember that you're on top of the world? Can you remember that you actually float because you're empty? You're like a balloon. not full of lead, not full of cement, not full of something that's heavy, not full of something that needs protection, but we're kind of empty inside. And that's marvelous. Michael, what do you think?
There isn't anything to disturb the mind, just floating in the ocean.
Mm-hmm. Or it's like a balloon floating in the air. Yeah, the wind comes and blows it, but it's not disturbing the balloon. It's just going with the flow. It's enjoying it. That's being in the stream of air, the stream of the water, or the stream of reality. Can you enter into that stream without saying, no, I don't like this, and no, I don't like that, and no, I have an inner core, and no, I'm vulnerable? Oh no, we just float with it. Dhammadas, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. It reminds me of Jesus saying, like, the kingdom of heaven is within you.
Within you. Mm-hmm.
It's like when your heart is silent, there's no past, there's no future, there's no ego. There's just like pure heaven, you know? It's like there's nobody to fight with, there's nobody to argue with or to discover anything. It's like you don't have to do anything really. It's like
right. It's all empty.
perfect.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Exactly. Perfect. Right. It's perfectly empty. There's nothing to it. That reminds me, in fact, of two things. The first one is Lao Tzu and Chang Tzu from the Taoist tradition. Chang Tzu has the phrase of that when there's the shoes, no pebble, no sand in the shoe, and so when the shoe fits, the foot is forgotten. When the heart is right, when the heart fits, when the heart is empty, then for and against are forgotten. That we don't make judgments because we're empty. You can imagine then that Adam and Eve were just fat and happy sitting in paradise, sitting in the Garden of Eden, and then they had a snake come and talk them into eating the fruit of good and evil. And because of that, they started seeing their paradise. Some of it was good and some of it was evil. And by having that judgment, they lost their paradise. But another point back, and that is in the Greek. This, by the way, the kingdom of heaven within you is in the chapter 17 of the book of Luke. And that the actual Greek is basilica theos. Okay, a cathedral is big, but a basilica, that's really, really big. And what is the whole quality of a basilica or a big cathedral? It's mostly empty. Got high ceilings, lots of air. It's an empty place, except that it's full of God. It's full of holiness. It's full of paradise. And so having that quality of the kingdom of God, the kingdom is the word basilica. But in fact, you can also think of it as a big palace, a big empty palace. So that's what your inner core is. The core itself is a basilica, and the basilica is empty. There's nothing there except holiness. It's whole. So having that quality of your inner core, there's no vulnerable child, there's no me, there's no self-protection mechanism or any of that stuff anymore. That's what we did as a child. We thought that we had to protect ourselves. We thought that we had to protect that core, and so we develop a thick skin. Now we don't need any skin because the core is empty, nothing to it. And we can take delight therein. All we have to do is remember that, focus on it, and keep that going. And that's what we're practicing Anapanasati for. That's why we practice a meditation. That's why we sit in silence. is to practice getting empty, to practice remembering the Dhamma, to practice that you can't touch me, to practice nurturing, to practice I've got it. This is what we do in our meditation. We're not sitting around waiting for some peak experience thinking that that peak experience has got value. No. What we need to do is to practice, to remember, to practice, to change the mind from unwholesome states to wholesome states and then into holy states. So that's what the Buddha teaches. Becoming satisfied, empty, not a problem in the world. So, does anybody have any last remarks, any thoughts? How about you, DJ?
Never mind that peak experience, Just coming back to this breath right now, This is enough.
This is the peak experience. And then this one is a peak experience. Just one peak experience after another after another.
Never
Right.
mind last Tuesdays. It's about the one right now.
Now, this is it. And this is it again. Uh-huh. So, Dhammarato, do you have any last remarks or anything to say? Everything is cool. Great. I'm so glad to see you again. Thank you. Michael, I guess we'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it.
All right. Do you have any last remarks about our today's talk?
No, this has been wonderful. So glad to see everyone here today, and such a delightful way to come back from retreat.
Great. All right, guys. We'll see you. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you. It was
I
good
really
seeing you all.
enjoy my friends.